It's KP's Video News, y'all. It's KP's Video News, y'all. That's right, it's KP's Video News, y'all. And I have a story here that's very, very, very disturbing to me, because, you know, as we go through this situation of the world searching and trying to find a vaccine for the COVID-19, this article popped up, and it has something to do with Bill and Melinda Gates, and a statement that Melinda Gates had made. And I also remember that a similar statement was made in Paris before the World Health Organization. And so I'm gonna share about this story here. And it said, the people are outraged after Bill Gates' wife says blacks should receive the COVID-19 vaccine first. Melinda Gates, the wife of billionaire Bill Gates, has reportedly suggested in a recent interview with Time magazine that black and Latino people should be the first to get the COVID-19 vaccine once it becomes available. As vaccine research for the virus becomes more and more progressive, some researchers are already trying to determine to whom the shot should be administered to first. Many have said key national security officials, high-risk individuals, and essential workers should be prioritized. That conversation, however, became controversial when Melinda Gates and others began suggesting that black people and other people of color should also get the vaccine first. In the United States, that would be black people next, quite honestly, and many other people of color. They're having disproportionate effects from the COVID-19, Gates said. Next, she said, would be people with underlying conditions, older people, and essential workers. It's true that studies show that black people are more likely to have underlying health conditions and have jobs that require them to work outside the home. Aside from having a disproportionate amount of COVID-19 related cases, black people are also more likely to contract and die from the virus. However, many African Americans in particular are very, very skeptical about vaccines, since they have been used by the United States government in the past, knowingly inject black people with diseases. And one famous example in history is the Tuskegee experiment. And for you young people that don't know what the Tuskegee experiment was, it was a terrible, terrible experiment that was done against black people. I mean, this experiment lasted 40 years, man, 40 years, and the people that were involved in this had no idea, entirely no idea what was going on. So before you even think about volunteering for, well, I want to volunteer to be the first one to test. No, don't do it. So Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, Donald Trump, his family, and all those Trump supporters down in Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, and all, you know, you take it first. You take the vaccine first. We want you to take it first, and then after a couple of years, we'll see what happened to you, and then we'll think about it. But as far as you volunteering black people to be the ones to be experimented on like guinea pigs, that's not going to happen. You take it first. Black people, wake up and stop taking everything these doctors give you without doing some research first. Now let me run down to what happened. The Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the African American male was a clinical study conducted between 1932 and 1972 by the United States Public Health Service. That's right, the United States Public Health Service. The purpose of this study was to observe the natural history of untreated syphilis. Can I say it again? This was to observe the natural history of untreated syphilis. So basically, these men were infected with syphilis, and it was untreated. And the whole time they was lying to them, telling them that they were getting treatment, but they were not getting treatment. The African American men in the study were only told they were receiving free health care from the federal government of the United States. The Public Health Service started the study in 1932 in collaboration with Tuskegee University. Then it was called the Tuskegee Institute, historical black college in Alabama, and investigators enrolled in the study a total of 600 impoverished, poor African American sharecroppers from Macon, Georgia, Alabama. Of these men, 399 had latent syphilis, with a control group of 201 men that were not affected. As an incentive for participation in the study, the men were promised free medical care, but were deceived by the Public Health Service, who disguised placebos, ineffective methods, and diagnostic procedures as treatment. The men who had syphilis were never informed of their diagnosis, despite the risk of infecting others. So that means they could go back and infect their wives and so they were not even, didn't even know they had the disease. And the fact that the disease could lead to blindness, deafness, mental illness, heart disease, bone deterioration, collapse of the central nervous system, and death. According to the CDC, the men were told they were being treated for bad blood, a colloquialism that described various conditions such as syphilis, anemia, and fatigue. Bad blood, specifically the collection of illnesses that term included, was a leading cause of death within Southern African American community. The men were initially told that the study was only going to last 6 months, but it was extended to 40 years. After funding for treatment was lost, the study was continued without informing the men that they would never be treated. None of the infected men were treated with the penicillin, despite the fact that by 1947, the antibiotic became the standard treatment for syphilis. The study could have chosen to treat all syphilis suspects and close the study, or split off a control group for testing with penicillin. Instead, they continued the study without treating any participants. They withheld treatment and information about it from the suspects. In addition, scientists prevented participants from accessing syphilis treatment programs available to other residents in the area. The study continued under numerous public health service supervisors until 1972, when a leak to the press resulted in its termination on November 16th of that year. The victims of the study, all African American, included numerous men who died of syphilis, 40 wives who contracted the disease, and 19 children born with syphilis. The 40-year study of untreated syphilis in the African American male study was a major violation of ethical standards. Researchers knowingly failed to treat participants appropriately after penicillin was proven to be an effective treatment for syphilis and became widely available. Moreover, participants remained ignorant of the study's true purpose, which was to observe the natural course of untreated syphilis. The revelation in 1972 of study failures by a whistleblower, Peter Buxton, led to major changes in U.S. law and regulation concerning the protection of participants in clinical studies. Now, studies require informed consent. So don't sign no informed consent. If you go to the doctor and the doctor says, yeah, I got this medication for you, but I want you to sign this informed consent form, that's informed consent. Do not sign it. Don't sign it, because they're getting ready to give you an experimental drug. Communications of diagnosis and accurate reporting of the results. The Tuskegee study, cited as arguably the most infamous biomedical research study in U.S. history, led to the 1979 Belmont Report and the establishment of the Office of Human Research Protections. OHRP. It also led to federal laws and regulations requiring institution review boards for the protection of human suspects in studies involving them. The OHRP manages this responsibility within the United States Department of Health and Human Services. That's HHS, Health and Human Services. In 1997, Bill Clinton formally apologized on behalf of the United States to the victims of the study. And by then, you know, hey, of course, you know the story that the majority of them were dead. And I mean, most of them died, and then their wives died, and then they had children. 40 wives died, and then they also had children that were born with syphilis. So, you know, like I said before, prior to this, they want to basically experiment with this COVID vaccine. They want to use it vaccine on black people and other minorities first. Don't go for the okie doke. Don't go for the okie doke, because if you do, they'll just be using you for a science lab experiment. And I'll say it again. Since you said that's what you wanted to do, Melinda Gates, you take it first. Bill Gates, you take it first. Donald Trump, you take it first. The whole entire Trump family, you take it first. Mitch McConnell, you take it first. Lindsey Graham, you take it first. David Nunes, you take it first. All the Trump supporters out there, you know, rednecks, you take it first. Because we refuse to be your guinea pig. Why should we test the COVID vaccine for you? So you can sit back and watch and say, well, let's see what happens. Why you use black people and other minorities as guinea pigs. Total BS, and it's not going to happen this time.
It's KP's Video News, y'all.
Wake up, folks.
It's KP's Video News, y'all.
Peace.